Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We have the man, the myth, the legend. That is Hades Mining. They had their embargo lifted after Slush last week Thursday. I wasn't able to make it out to see him. Dr. Max is in the building, and I've got a special surprise for you, my friend. A very, very special surprise. Yeah, I have the
Oh,
hat.
wow.
Yeah,
You got
and
that. That's
this
amazing.
wasn't bought. This wasn't bought. This was the same hat my father used in T5 as he was implementing the IT infrastructure. So they had to drill
That's
that, and
fantastic.
he oversaw some of the drilling as they were laying the cable. So I thought this was a lovely round circle moment, my friend. How are you? Congratulations. This thing is incredible from what I've heard.
Thank you so much. Really exciting. Thanks for having me as well. And most importantly, now that you wear the hat, we can talk about heavy machines and like mining as well, which is quite important. Safety first, huh? Safety first.
Safety deeply important. I have the glasses at home and the bright yellow jacket. So when we come out to Germany to see you for the lab walk, we're just going to take it all with us.
Can't wait. That's going to be exciting.
My friend, look, I would love to learn a little bit about laser mining. Can we give me a flavor of why this is in the world right now?
Yeah, I mean, most importantly, I think it's all about contactless drilling in the first place. Ultimately, like the traditional drill, the mechanical drill that has been used for now more than 120 years, is has done an incredible job helping humanity prosper. It has unlocked incredible buildings, incredible infrastructure. All of this stuff was built on pretty much the ability to drill deep holes. And it has done a great job. But over 120 years, the trend of like how much progress you can squeeze out that mechanical principle, that pretty much came a little bit to a dead end at this stage. So it's an incredibly advanced product, but the physical principle behind the mechanical drill, ultimately removing rock by force and by having the harder material to go through, that pretty much has come to a stall. There's not much you can develop there more anymore. And now it needs really the step change of pretty much changing the physical principle to drill. And this step change ultimately can be contactless and has been researched for many, many years for contactless drilling. And there are various means of contactless drilling. You can do that with water. You can do this with plasma. You can do this with fuel. You can do this with microwaves. And last but not least, you can also do that with laser. And so we pretty much over the last 2 years compared all of these methods and pretty much done our own metric on why we believe or don't believe in these all different physical principles. We did some tests as well on all of them, and ultimately we came to our conclusion that laser is by far the most superior. It has by far the highest and fastest ability to destroy rock, and because of this, ultimately we think that speed will translate ultimately into cost reduction. And I think the industry deeply and dramatically needs cost reduction in drilling. Holes are way too expensive for what it is. And that's ultimately what we're going to deliver.
My friend, I have genuinely so many questions. I've never enjoyed going down a rabbit hole of mining, because like initially I've always been enamored by space as we kind of both are a little bit, and asteroid mining is what came to mind. But as I was getting into sort of the prep for this particular episode to do it justice, I realized Europe's dependency gap, less than 3% of domestic production versus 70% of reserves. And this will unlock that capability, I assume, right?
That is indeed like the challenge that we have at the moment in Europe. Like I think we have some of the lowest critical mineral productions in the world of any developed nation. Europe, as pretty much the alliance all together, produces less than 3% of the critical minerals that it consumes. That puts us at the very bottom of the global list. Yeah. For example, as in comparison, even India produces 24%, which comes after us. Well, there's a more than 21% gap, pretty much of like countries that do not produce their own critical minerals. And that gap is not in generally a problem. Like I understand why Europe did it. Like they ultimately went all in on globalization and outsourced it because it is a very difficult business. And it is, of course, difficult to do in Europe with its bureaucracy, with some of the geology as well. But
Yeah, well,
that
the
time
ultra
has
hard rock
changed.
challenge is deeply, deeply difficult, right? And if we don't have the mining equipment, like you said, for hundreds of years, we haven't actually innovated in any capacity, maybe on the diamond head, and that's about it. And with some new mediums in water and plasma, well, then we still are going to have the same problem inherently that, like, our geology is just deeply difficult to mine.
That is correct. Yes, we have some of the highest concentrations of hard rock on the planet. That's pretty much similar, like our tectonic plates, how they are formed. Like ultimately, we have here a pretty safe spot in Europe. There's not much earthquakes going on, and because of this, pretty much like a lot of the rock has crystallized, and this crystallized rock becomes insanely hard in the process over millions and millions of years because there was no movement. In a very quick and fast, non-geologist way to explain it, and this ultimately means that we have it at the surface level as well. Like especially here in the Alp region, like a lot of this hard rock is right straight under our feet, and that means that any sort of hole that you want to drill needs to be able to deliver very well on this hard rock, and that's very complex. But again, the challenge is very good because again, especially in hard rock, the laser outperformed every other mean of destruction dramatically. So on that, we feel very confident that especially in hard rock, these solutions will work extremely well.
From what I found out, it's lab validated up to 100 times faster than current commercial applications.
It's 80 to 100 times roughly, yeah, but it is an absolute step change, absolute. Like, and this is pretty much like a traditional drill, goes zero point 0.5 to 1 meters per hour in hard rock, usually, like on average, slows down. And our laser drill pretty much goes through hard rock at speeds of 45 to 50 meters per hour. Yeah.
How have you been able to do that? And why is laser the right medium to do it in, if you don't mind me asking?
I mean, again, like so far, we haven't done it yet on the actual scale. We have so far tested all of these things in the laboratory, and we have now conducted pretty much our own first laser drill assembled. That pretty much is in the size of an actual like industrial test set. But so far at this stage, all of these pretty much tests have been very successful. So the rock destruction capability, the energy that we need downhole, so you need to put a lot of energy, of course, into the borehole in order to make the laser work. All of that works pretty well. And on the cleaning up of the borehole, pretty much because you have a lot of like leftover and splints that you need to remove. All the tests have been very successful, but you need to imagine all of them have been individualized tests. And now we are pretty much converging them, putting all of this together to actually have an industrial product. And that will still take us a bit of time. Also, not too long, but still a little bit. And then we hope to see this thing running very soon and having its impact on the European mining industry within the next few years for sure. Yeah.
How important is the sovereignty element of this for you?
Mhm. I mean, again, I'm very passionate about Europe. I mean, I come from Germany. I was born here. Like, I do deeply care about our continent. And I think, again, not disrespecting the decision to go all in on globalization, we have massively benefited from it
Right
as well.
move at the
Like, we
right
all
time.
had. Absolutely. And it's just like I think the thing that Europe is not that good with is to fast change to different circumstances. And now we have a radically different geopolitical landscape that pretty much forces a de-globalization to a certain degree, at least in some industries, especially in industries that are critical for pretty much a state or an alliance to function. And those are like defense, energy production, like aerospace, all the things that pretty much keep it running. And if that is not pretty much there anymore, and you cannot supply it within the continent, then that is a challenge. Yeah.
Max, how do you go about fundraising for something like this? I've got to be honest, man, because like they must either come to you or you've got to really educate them on why something like this is needed today. What was that fundraising process like in the run up to like the embargo and then announcing to the world at Slush?
Yeah, I mean, so far we can't complain, to be very honest. I think, luckily, this resilience movement that has pretty much started in the last 3, 4 years, especially in Europe, with this new mindset that sadly comes out of the Ukraine war. Like, I wish that we wouldn't have that, but it has pretty much changed the minds of a lot of like investors and also lobbyists and political groups. And with this new mindset, pretty much people understand that ultimately, if I am funding a defense startup, this defense startup, of course, if it produces critical aspects of the defense chain for Europe, then it also needs to control its supply chain, because it's not you are not producing a
Yes.
toothbrush where it's not a problem if it's not producing anymore. It's sad, like we don't make money, but like if for defense something stops running, it means ultimately that in the worst case we are not able to defend ourselves and defend our values, which means the whole European project would fail. And that is something that a lot of people care about and are willing to invest in to get that back to Europe. And the resources are here. Again, we have between 35% of the identified resources here in Europe. They are just not being mined at the moment. And the political shift is here as well, with the European Union legislating the so-called Critical Mineral Act, which again is meant to increase this domestic production all the way up to 10% and more. And I think it's going to increase. I think this is only the start. The US has already updated their critical mineral lists like much more recently, much more in line with this new geopolitical reality. And I think Europe will also update. I think they're due to update this list by next year anyway. And so I assume this list will dramatically expand, will include a lot more very, very sensitive minerals and components necessary to keep our energy and defense production alive in the worst circumstances. Yeah.
Dr. Max, it feels like sometimes when I talk to you that you are thinking at least 50 years in the future, and this is just the Hades mining today is a vehicle for doing things downstream in 10, 15, 20 years. I'm sure I haven't seen how large the actual product is, right? The engineering marvel that you've built is, but I assume you're going to be able to put it inside of a rocket and get it up into space. And asteroid mining is on the cusp of your head, right? How do you think about the iterations towards that? Do you think about it as generations of the product moving forward to be able to do that? I would love to just understand the mental model here, because I'm just genuinely I'm incredibly enamored right now.
I will start by saying I think this is our ethical answer to the general dilemma of pretty much mining on planet Earth. Ultimately, any sort of mining project will always have some downsides because you're ultimately extracting. There is, of course, something being taken out of the earth. There is some things that need to be removed, and if they scale up in size, that ultimately becomes always a bit of an ethical dilemma. Again, because of this new geopolitical reality, I think there is the mindset to take this dilemma again and do it. That is good. But I also personally, and as a business, we don't like that. We want to solve that problem for once and for all. And we take the responsibility to pretty much promote off-planet mining, which can be on asteroids, it can be on planets, that can be on the moon, and ultimately be able to get some resources from space. So in long term, we are in a position to get less mining on Earth and pretty much get some of the critical minerals or some of the energy components out of space. And that is, in my mind, absolutely far in the future. It's not now. We are not going to do this in the next 5 years. But it is something that on the technology roadmap, you need to already think about, because, of course, some key technologies that we are going to develop is meant to unlock that at some later stage. So we need to consider it. And that's something that we take very, very seriously because we deeply believe in off-planet mining. And there are very concrete projects and funding is already available to test these kind of things that is being taken right now in the US and in China. And I don't see any reason why Europe should be shyer there and should not also push forward to take its grasp on pretty much the minerals and energy that space ultimately offers.
Can I ask why you
And
love?
luckily, we are in the ecosystem here in Munich, which of course is also very, very famous for its space ecosystem. And so ultimately, we do have hopefully access to actually getting there at some point.
You've got all the space companies on the continent. I would love to know,
That is correct.
why does why does the team love mining? Like, why do they love the ground? Is there something that unites all of you here? Is it stopping humanity from just extracting every ounce out of the planet we live on? Is it that you deeply care about the ecosystem that we are destroying by mining? What is it? What unites the team?
I think at the moment the key motivation is this resilience aspect that we all believe in the European vision, or the vision of the West as well, you could say. And in order to become a bit more independent, to get the critical mineral production up is a key component. So I think that is the thing that motivates us on a day-to-day basis. But we all do deeply and passionately believe in the long-term aspects of pretty much being able to get mining off the planet. But again, we are also very realistic that this is by no means in the next few days or in the next few years. This is a long-term prospect that we are keeping an eye on, not something that we are pursuing immediately. But what is going to be also super exciting is to actually get something done. Like ultimately, as a startup, we have a little bit more freedom. We are ultimately way more agile than corporates and some governments. And as such, we can take on some of these challenges much, much faster and with a different mindset than others and be a little bit of like the rebellious types, right? Like some lobbyists, some people still need to know this, right? Like your product that you are using, your telephone, your laptop, all of these things without mining, they wouldn't exist, right? Like and even much more essential, your houses, your energy, all of this wouldn't exist without mining. And it's currently being supplied by some nations that are not putting the ethical work in to get that stuff out of the ground ethically. And all of this pretty much puts us in a dilemma. And I want to not solve that dilemma. It's always a dilemma. Living is a dilemma, right? It's all about pretty much getting the things right ethically. And so here we want to offer a new technological solution that makes it at least better than the status quo. And we want to do it faster and want to scale it as well.
Yeah, the dichotomy of humanity is an interesting one. I don't know how we end up solving that today, but at least someone's doing it, like, taking a chance to try it, right?
I think we should all just think about it every day. Huh? Like whatever we do, everyone can contribute, right?
Max, you and me wake up, we shave our heads, and we think about, right, how do I solve the world's problems today?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we are doing anyway.
This is a fact. I would love to understand what's deeply difficult about what you do. Is it the engineering side of like building the laser? But obviously, you've gone through the process of making 80 to 100 times better. Is it the primes getting involved and owning the licenses, or is it just regulation? But then we sort of have, like you said, the Minerals Act that's come into play. I would love to sort of pick your brain around this.
It's certainly something like there are challenges on all sides, right? It's a
Right.
very ambitious project. There are certainly the designing this deep drill is an enormous engineering challenge, right? Like it's from the complexity level, I think it's probably one or two below a rocket, but still very, very complex up there. That's mainly because the environment that this technology needs to work in is insanely hostile. Like it's like space being insanely hostile for technology. Ultimately, if you go deep underground, you have enormous amounts of pressure. You have rock, you have some gases breaking in. Everything is underwater the entire time because you need to clean it out. So this is really not the environment where you want to have any sensitive technology. And that itself, to design that nicely, that is an enormous engineering challenge. And I'm very, very happy to have an excellent team that actually is up to that task. But again, we are still realists and we do see it as a solvable challenge, but it is a very, very enormous challenge that we have subscribed to and we are excited to solve it. But again, we are also realistic. It's a big challenge. And then the second thing, of course, we do want to do mining ultimately. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to become a drilling company ultimately,
Right.
because we think that this technology that we have here and the time and money that we invest in actually making this happen gives us a bit of a claim to actually have a larger business model as well, or try to have bigger impact, I would say. And in order to do that, we pretty much want to own the entire value chain in mining and ultimately own assets and extract resources. So our end product is ultimately not the drill. It's not going to be sold. It's not going to be serviced, right? Like the end product here is actual tons of critical minerals that we have taken out of the earth and the same energy produced ultimately through, for example, geothermal means. So ultimately electricity produced. That's the end product. And for that, there's of course huge challenges again on bureaucracy, huge challenges again on convincing people to fundraise these kind of things. But again, the landscape looks very attractive to us at the moment, so we do subscribe to that very big challenge. But we are also realistic; it is a very big challenge, yeah, on all means.
Oh God, I can't even imagine the amount of regulation that you're gonna have to deal with once this thing like comes online officially, and everyone wants to get a piece of it and involved. You talked about the commercial
So
model a little
yes.
bit here around like there's an energy element, there is getting minerals out of the ground element. We don't just want to be a drilling company, we want to be a mining company and own the like the output of that mining. Um,
Mhm.
At what point is there a timeline that you've got where you say that is in mind in how you think about we need to get off world and we need to get this business model off world? Is that within the next 15 years or is there slightly longer timeline in your mind?
No, I think it's within the next 10 to 20 years. That's, I think, 15, you put it right at the sweet spot.
Right.
Pretty much that's where I would also see it. Yeah, absolutely. It's so not so far away that it's not touching our technology and business model. That's why I always talk about it as well. But at the same time, it's also not right now. We are not spending any funds in actually getting up to space. At this stage, the only thing that we keep in mind is that our technology model that we choose pretty much considers us being able to translate that technology for off-world applications as well. Yeah,
I would like those space contracts are going to be really interesting with everyone wanting to get to the moon now. You sort of are like teed up perfectly for the acceleration as that first man or woman lands on the moon again. We will want to start mining so we can get back, and it makes sense that Hades is up there. Does the product have a name?
absolutely. And funny enough, like the moon is all hard rock, right? Like it's the largest piece of hard rock, I think, in our galaxy. So whoever wants to drill on the moon indeed needs a very, very good drill for hard rock circumstances. Yeah.
What did you read as a kid that made you want to get into this space?
I mean, it depends. I think back in the day, my motivation was ultimately I started my career in the military, and I read a lot of like Lord of the Rings for sure. I read Silmarillion and all of these things. But like ultimately, like I am a curious person. I
But
try
most
to
people
try to
look
do
up,
things.
Max. Most people don't look down.
Yeah, true. It's fair enough, but sometimes the obvious is right under your feet. Yeah, that's how it is sometimes. And sometimes you learn that also you need to do something that is not sexy. Right, that's something that you learn in the military as well. Like just because something is not the obvious or attractive or hyped at the moment, it still is very important. And mining itself is, of course, in generally, if you would ask someone on the street, mining is not sexy. It's not a hype topic. It's nothing, right? And still, this is incredibly important. It's a very difficult challenge with a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of challenges, but we kind of need to make mining sexy again in Europe. Yeah, that's what it's all about. Like, not because I want to laugh about the people and the ethical challenges, because they are there and we acknowledge them and we want to take care of them, but we cannot do it if we are not looking at these things just because it's not sexy and it is a difficult industry. That doesn't mean that we can just forget about it, because then we cease to exist as a geopolitical power. Without our own supply chains for energy and for defense, we are not a society, right? Like this is not, it's not the full picture. And that really in this current geopolitical context is of the most importance. And that's why even something as unsexy as going in the underworld is actually really important for this. And the motivation pretty much to help stabilize our value-based alliance, that's something I deeply believe in.
I I guess it's apt then that the company is named Hades. Does the name of the engineering, like the product, have a name, or is that Hades as well?
At the moment, it's only the company name is Hades, and ultimately, like it's even back in the day, like for little mining projects that they did in the old times, they did indeed pray to Hades. He's of course the god of the underworld, so it's very much related to death, and that's how everyone knows them from Disney. But in the end, it still was someone, the god that you pretty much pray to before you went into some quarry to take out some stones or something. Like because again, the underworld starts wherever you do a tunnel. So it very much relates to our European heritage. It relates to mining, and it relates to the ambition that we have ultimately. Yeah.
I love it. Look, I want to talk a little bit about the team here because you've got some missionaries going on this journey with you. I'm who within that core leadership team, the CTO, the CEO, the engineering team. How have you been able to stack the deck with such incredible talent that wants to go on this journey with you? How have you been able to bring them on that mission?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, really thankful to have an incredible team, and especially co-founder team with Björn and Dan, pretty much having joined me from ESA Aerospace and from Marvel Fusion, respectively. They both were very high up in some very, very sexy technology startups. And yeah, you could of course ask, why would you leave something like like this, right? Like building a fusion reactor is incredibly exciting, and ultimately building rockets, the first rockets for Europe is also incredibly exciting. You must have seen the launch footage like earlier this year, like
Oh God,
with
don't
this
even get me
fjord
started.
background, right? Like some of the most beautiful footage ever. And yeah, and still we all took that responsibility. We saw what is up to stake here for Europe. Again, they have specifically also worked on European projects, right? It's ESA is the pretty much the European space hope,
Yeah.
and ultimately space access is incredibly important for European geopolitical power as well. So this deep belief and motivation is all shared by all three of us, and I think the only thing both of them didn't had at that stage of their career is the founder pretty much having any actually done a company themselves. So they always looked out, and we always were in contact for many years already. And when we saw this opportunity rising up, we inspected a few things and slowly pretty much delved deeper into it. And as we saw, many of these things that we then checked were turning out positive. So it more and more became an actual business opportunity. And then at some point, we started thinking about making this an actual startup as well. But that's not how it started, you know, like the process is not you sit together one day and then you're like, this is the startup, let's just launch it and go. Like it's a very long process. You start with, have you seen this market number? Blah, blah, blah. And then you slowly see there's evidence, 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 and it becomes more like of an actual opportunity then. Yeah.
But it also feels like there's an ecosystem play here, right? Like in the, you know, ESAR Aerospace is going to get this particular product up into space. You then are going to need a very, very strong energy source that isn't powered by the sun potentially, because it needs more wattage than that. And where does that come into play? Fusion reactors that over time are going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So, like, I am fully invested in you winning and the team winning. One of the last questions I love to ask guests on the show is very much who's on your Mount Rushmore of founders. For you, Max, who are they?
Ooh, that's a very good question, actually. I would say probably Jeff Bezos somewhere. Like I deeply respect what he has built. Like I think it's incredible what from literally an online book sale to a technology powerhouse. And I deeply respect that also. Like in his late game, where he could have also finished and just enjoy his life, he still builds companies. That's very exciting. That's also something I deeply respect about Elon Musk. Just because again he's building insane hours and insane companies, well, although he's already incredibly rich and could do whatever he wants. I think the world needs more rich people who actually continue to build hard and take that responsibility even when the luxury is available at any time. And I mean, just imagine the kind of strength as a person you need to get out of that comfort, right? You have all the comfort in the world and you still wake up every morning and do all of these hard jobs. Like I must say, I deeply respect that for
I
both of them actually. And I think for space, of course, what they did for space is incredibly like SpaceX and Blue Origin,
It's incredible.
deeply, deeply humbling. Yeah.
That's two. Give me two more.
More, two more. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I would say probably it's like I think I'm cutting this short. Like I think I won't add two other ones because it's very high up Mount Ashmore, and I don't want to add someone who I don't specifically look up to as well. Yeah,
Max, this has been an absolute pleasure. I have two small asks, if you will.
yeah, of course.
One, I would love to come and do a video with you in person at Hades Mining at some point soon. I'll fly out to Germany and see you. Are you game for that?
Absolutely, of course.
Yeah,
You're welcome. Please come over.
you're incredible. And two, can we find
Need
a
to
way?
have a beer in Munich as well then.
Look, I love Bavarian beer. I will do that any day of the week with you. We can eat some great food as well. The second one is, can we find a way to talk to Isa about streaming a rocket launch?
Let's see. Come over here. We talk here, and then we can continue that conversation. Maybe we can get someone in the room.
Max, this has been an absolute pleasure, my friend. I cannot wait to see you in person. I wish you all the best, my friend. I'll see you soon.
Same. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much for having me. Bye bye.
Ciao, ciao.